as a win. Guys, it's time. It's finally art time. When it comes to video game art style, I'm a huge fan of 3D games that have kind of a simplified, toony, 2D kind of look. And so one of my visual inspo games is A Short Hike, which I've mentioned on this channel before, how much I love the aesthetic for this game. I mean, how could you not? It's beautiful. I love how the shapes and the textures are all pretty simple, but very effective. I like how blocky the shadows look. I think that adds to that simplified 2D feel. And overall, the color palette is just so gorgeous, and it really highlights the foliage. My next inspo game is Tiny Bookshop, which I've also mentioned on this channel before. It's absolutely gorgeous. It has this beautiful watercolory, hand-drawn aesthetic. I'm so curious how they achieve the watercolory look. I wonder if they hand drew those textures onto there. The shadows in this game are relatively more muted and subtle, which makes things look a little bit more flat and like a drawing. And I kind of like that. At first, what I was considering for my game was to just make everything unshaded, just because I thought that would be like the easiest way to achieve a 2D-ish look. But then it's just not really hitting the spot. I realized that shading is important, even if the shadows are very subtle. And I also feel like the dynamic shadows are part of what makes 3D games so visually appealing to me. And finally, my last inspo game is Untitled Goose Game. The color palette is quite neutral. The shading in this game looks to me as very minimal. It just looks very silly yet relaxing. Something else that I've noticed is that animation is going to be an important part alongside the art. It very much brings life to the art. The rest of that day I spent studying my inspo games a bit more, and then watching a bunch of tutorials on Godot shaders to get a rough idea of what's possible to achieve with them and how. I know that it's common for art to be done towards the end of development, and I'm not near that yet, but I wanted to get started on it now because I do care about the artistic vision quite a bit, but I also barely have any experience making video game art. So I know that it might take me several iterations to land on something that I'm happy with. So I'm doing a first pass at it now, letting my eyes marinate on it as I continue to work on the game, and then I'll probably naturally find things I want to change about it for my next pass. That night, I had a burst of motivation, so I hopped on the iPad and made this sizing guide for my game furniture. During this time, Tomodachi Life had just come out, so in the background I was watching a lot of streamers play that game for research purposes, obviously, and not for entertainment. But it actually was a good source of inspo since my game does have some qualities of life sims, like how you interact with customers and affect their mood. Some of these dimensions feel questionable to me. Like, why'd I make the coffee machine so big? It's like as big as the chair and the table. So let me just double check my calculations. All right, I just finished adjusting all the measurements and all of that. And here's my final size guide that I'll be using. The coffee machine still looks kind of big, but it's because this is like the max size for it, but I'll probably make it smaller than that. And I put this cute little diorama area over here so that as I sketch out the furniture on this side, I can drag it over here and kind of play dollhouse and see how it would look all together. So yeah, also shout out to the isometric drawing guide. If you didn't know, in Procreate, if you go to edit drawing guide, then you can find the option for isometric drawing guides. Super useful. I do want to start by sketching out a table for now. That's just what's calling me at this moment. I want this to very clearly be a single person table because I want to give my customers seat preferences, and one of the preferences is that they like to sit alone. So I'm thinking of making a table that's like closed on one side. Hopefully that makes it seem clear enough that it's a solo table. Is this structurally sound? Now that I think about it, I feel like it would tip over this way, no? How is that? I like that it looks less modern. I feel like modern is less cozy. Less modern, more cozy. But it does feel kind of too blocky, maybe. Yeah, I feel like this is so much better. It does give more desk than like coffee table, but that is kind of by design, because this isn't any kind of coffee shop. No, this is a study cafe. I'll pause here and let myself marinate on this design for now. After coming back to the table that I drew yesterday with fresh eyes this time, my final verdict is that I do like it. I like it, but there is a but. I want to consider another design as well. I just felt like the design that I drew feels a little bit like a specialty table, since it's not your standard coffee shop table. But since this is the starter set, I do want it to feel like as basic as possible. So I want to try drawing just like a very basic coffee shop table and see which one I prefer in the end. In drawing the furniture, I realized that I hadn't really studied these objects closely before, even though a lot of them I see in everyday life. Like it was in this moment that I learned that sometimes the legs on a chair extend down from the backrest and not the bottom of the seat. As I was drawing, I wondered if this is kind of how writers feel when they're doing research for their stories. Like if your main character is an architect, now you have to learn about architecture. And in my game, the main character, aka the player, is a cafe owner, so now I have to learn about furniture design and interiors and coffee. Cute. Maybe because I was studying all these various new geometries for the first time, I found it quite mentally taxing. So I worked on the drawings very slowly over the course of several days, taking plenty of breaks, during some of which I read this beautiful book that fascinated me, and making sure to stretch out those shoulder muscles that were tense from concentrating.
I find this very relaxing.
I just finished all my drawings, and I also added a title so I can tie everything together into a neat little design document, which I find so satisfying to look at. I want to like print it out and frame it and put it on my desk or something. It just brings me so much joy. Things might still change once I put the actual assets into the game, which means it's finally time. And y'all know what time it is. It's Blender time. Well, not today. I gotta eat lunch. But tomorrow, it'll be Blender time. We've got mail! Recently, I decided that I want to open an online shop to sell t-shirts with my original art on it. And it's a project that I've been very excited about. So I've been ordering sample tees because, of course, I need to make sure it's something that I can proudly offer, and because I want one myself. Actually, this all started as an excuse to make custom tees for myself, but it turned into a whole endeavor because I just don't have the ability to create something, especially if it's not just for me, without putting my entire soul and carpal tunnel into it. This is my second attempt on a graphic tee because I wasn't happy with my first sample. So I took everything I learned from it and tried again, this time through a different service, using a different t-shirt blank, print method, and I drew new art for it as well. Anyways, here is the unboxing for sample number 2. The shirt already feels so much better. Just coming out of the package. It is more expensive. It's so nice. It's beautiful. This is definitely going in the shop, okay? I love the quality of the shirt. It feels so nice. I love the cut of this shirt. I love the oversized style. And most importantly, the graphic came out so crisp. It's so crisp. I'm so excited to open my shop. I finally have something that's worthy of putting on there. Update, my shop is now live with my first 2 designs on it. So if you have similar taste in graphic tees as me, please check out my website linked in the description below. Anything I create with sincerity, and these are no exception. And by purchasing a shirt, you are directly supporting my dream to continue to create sincerely. Also, you'll see footage of me designing this second shirt later in this episode. But for now, it's finally Blender time. I felt super rusty getting back into Blender after several months of not using it. It felt weird because when I had just started learning game dev, I was pretty equal in my dev skills and Blender skills because they were both close to 0, and I was maybe even a bit better at 3D modeling. But I realized that at this point, I was starting to feel a lot more comfy on Godot than on Blender. Oh, it's so hard to control this. I can't make it smaller. Thankfully, I hadn't forgotten everything I learned, so I was able to somehow make something that resembles a chair and something that resembles a table to use as my first couple guinea pigs as I start to really experiment with the art.
So cute.
After experimenting around a little bit and also looking at a lot of stuff online about game art, I decided to approach beautifying my game in 3 main parts. Number 1, textures. Number 2, lighting. And number 3, post-processing. Now, I've dipped my toes into the first 2 territories, but I've never really done any work with shaders that affect the whole game screen. This is gonna be new, and I'm a little scared. The next several days were spent experimenting with textures and shaders, and I learned many things, such as that you can import 3D models into Procreate, apparently, but not how to actually make use of this feature. I also learned that I like painting some subtle shading onto the 3D models, and I thought I would like the more pixelated blocky textures because it reminds me of Minecraft, and I like Minecraft, but I learned that I actually like these softer, blurry textures better. I also learned a whole bunch of things about post-processing, which I will get to in a bit. Eventually though, I got to that point you get to when working on the same thing for too long, where everything just starts to look off, and you don't know why, which is usually a sign that it's time to take a break. And so I did just that, and then it was back to work. I am slowly easing myself back into working on the game art. During my break from working on the art, I did some bug fixing, and working on the bugs has given me a moment to just let whatever progress I've made so far on the art sink in and decide how I feel about it. And so based on that, I've already made some adjustments to the lighting, the coloring, the shading. Speaking of which, figuring out shading has been a whole beast in itself. So right now, my vision for the shading is not that crazy. Basically just want to do some color grading. And at first I tried this method that I've seen a lot of tutorials for, where basically you have this plane that exists in the 3D world and you apply the shader onto that plane. And so when the camera looks through that plane, then you can get the effects that you want. And you can do some cool stuff this way. And so I tried that, but once again, I learned that the way transparency works in video games is very complicated. It was giving me a lot of problems, specifically with the walls of the cafe, because the walls are technically in the transparency pipeline, which is how I'm able to make them see-through wherever the windows are placed. And so I tried a different method where I apply a shader onto a UI node, but I had the same problem. I just went back to try to film for you guys the problem that I was having with applying the shader on top of the UI. And what I mean by that is I'm just applying the shader onto this rectangle. And I swear last time this was causing issues with making the walls look all weird and stuff, but now it works fine. It kind of looks good even. I'm very confused, but I'm taking this as a win. And so that led me down this whole rabbit hole where I was writing a compute shader and wondering what the hell I was getting myself into. But then after just clicking around a little bit, I realized that there are some built-in settings that I can use to get the effect that I want. I don't need to be doing all this writing shaders and stuff. So ever since realizing that, I've just been clicking around on these settings. They're under this environment node. There are also some useful settings under lighting as well. And as of right now, I've landed on this coloring that I'm pretty happy with for now. While working on the bugs and looking at these chairs a lot, I also decided that I'm not the biggest fan of them. I just think they're a little too blocky for what I would like. And so I've already got started yesterday working on a second chair model. This one is a little more shapely and I would say a bit more complex. So today I want to finish up that new model, do the UV unwrapping and texture painting and all that, and put it into the game. Yeah, it kind of mogs my old chair. I'm so happy with how the art is shaping up right now. I feel like I'm finding a direction. Not gonna lie, I was a little bit worried while I was bug fixing and looking at the game and just wasn't happy yet with how things were looking. But now, I love the chairs. I think they look so minimal, which I love, but also just enough detail that they don't look too clunky. And the coloring, I'm really liking the coloring so far. I'm so happy. I am designing yet again another graphic tee. Not gonna lie, I think I'm a little bit addicted. I was going to open my store with just my first t-shirt design to start, but then I had another idea that I wanted to make, and I just felt like the two of them would look so good in the store together, so I decided to go for it. At first, I just had a rough color palette, this bluish parentheses greenish on yellowish whitish color palette, and then I thought about what kind of graphic would look good using that color palette. Because of the blue, the first place that my mind went was aquatic, but then I felt like it was a bit too aquarium. And I knew I wanted something more zen feeling. And so then my brain went to ripples in a pond. I wrote some zen sounding statements to try to inspire myself, and matcha latte. And then eventually I arrived at some lily pad themes. In theory, I liked the lily pads floating across the entire front of the t-shirt, but in practice, I felt like it looked kind of weird for some reason. I tried making the edges squiggly because I felt like it looks more flowy and more reminiscent of water, and I like how that looks. But these are still sketches. They're tiny and very pixelated. So today I want to make the full-size versions of these in all their crisp, precise, illustrated glory. The sample for shirt number 2 is here. What an exciting day today is. Let's open it up. I'm a bit nervous about this one. I drew some thinner lines in this design, and I'm not sure yet if that works well with the printing method for the t-shirts. There is the risk that if the lines are too thin that they wouldn't adhere to the shirt, so there could just be little missing bits and pieces here and there. Reveal. Okay, I didn't have to worry at all. The lines are all there. I did end up ordering a second sample with some color adjustments to make the colors pop more, which is the one that's now up on my site. In an earlier sketch, I had considered drawing the outline of the pond for the back, but I'm glad that I didn't because now it looks like you, the wearer, are the pond that the lily pads are floating on. And that's kind of poetic, probably. It's been a very nice break to be working in Blender for once instead of Godot, although I will say, I do enjoy coding more than I thought I would. But I think it's just nice to switch things up. It's something that I've been enjoying about solo development. It's a lot of work to need to develop a lot of different skill sets, but that's also what makes it very mentally stimulating and keeps things from feeling stale. It's so satisfying to look at them like this. I'm still very much a noob when it comes to Blender, but I feel like I'm slowly building an intuition when it comes to 3D modeling. And seeing myself just get a little more smooth with it every day, I find that very rewarding. I'm also just really enjoying working in this low poly style. It's just so satisfying to make such exact geometry. I think today's like the 3rd day maybe of just grinding out the furniture set. Probably gonna need at least a couple more days to finish adding the rest of the models and then testing out the textures and finalizing them based on what I think looks good. So I'm just gonna keep going while taking a lot of breaks. It's kind of a similar deal with when I was working on the drawings for the furniture. Because I'm still very unfamiliar with Blender, it takes a lot of brain power. So I need to recharge myself as I go. All the furniture models have been added into the game, and dare I say, I don't think they look too shabby. While there are definitely a lot of visual bugs and little details that need rounding out, especially the windows, they look kind of funky, but I think that this is a very good starting point. I also unexpectedly really like how the trash can turned out. It's an unexpected favorite. My game's slowly starting to feel a little more real to me, especially with this visual upgrade, because it's finally starting to look in the direction of my vision for the game. There are still a few things that I want to get done before I wrap up this build phase, but I think this is a good place to stop for this video, so that'll be for next time. Thank you guys so much for lending me a moment of your time. Also, if you have any thoughts, comments, suggestions, advice, ideas that you would like to share, please leave them in the comments below. And with that, I'll see you guys next time. Bye!